Dean, thank you so much. And joining us now, Ido Aharoni, the Consul General of Israel in New York. Thank you so much for coming into the studio.
Thank you.
So we have even the parents of the murdered teens amidst the most impossible pain and loss, acting in a unified way. So I guess my first question to you would be, how do we even begin to see an atmosphere for negotiation, and what do you think the most constructive contribution the United States could make to this process?
Well, the big question is, what do you do with an organization that is committed to your destruction?
Yeah.
We're looking at an organization that represents an uncompromising view that Israel should be wiped off the map. So it's not that you don't have here a scenario of dealing with them, reaching some sort of a compromise. This is not the case. This is an organization that wants to kill you, and you have to protect yourself. This is the responsibility of the Israeli government. Now, as for the United States, I think we heard the statement. We are very appreciative of the fact that this administration has been standing by Israel for consistently, and of course, we're grateful for this support.
Well, so let me ask you then, sir. This morning, the Wall Street Journal said Israel has no other choice but to destroy Hamas. There is no middle ground. You're either going to have to negotiate with Hamas, or you're going to have to destroy Hamas. If they continue to seek the destruction of Israel, which they do, and as the Wall Street Journal said this morning, they continue to hold their own people hostage to these attacks that only cause more misery for their own people and the people of Israel. So, is Israel going to destroy Hamas's war-making ability, or are they going to negotiate with them?
Well, you know, the Israeli political system is very different than the American political system in many ways, but two particular ways for this discussion. The first is the commander-in-chief in Israel is the cabinet. Secondly, the cabinet is comprised of a number of political parties. Each represents a different view, and all decisions made in Israel are actually a result of a discussion, a lively debate, sometimes a fierce debate, and we will have to wait and see what the Israeli political system will produce. Having said that, Prime Minister Netanyahu is in his 9th year combined as a prime minister. I think he has a beautiful record of showing restraint and responsibility, and this is how the Israeli government is going to act this time as well.
Richard,
let me ask Joe's question a different way. What is success here for Israel? You've got a group like Hamas with thousands and thousands of short and medium range rockets. Is success going back to the 2012 ceasefire, or essentially so-called calm for calm, or does it go beyond that? Is Israel prepared to live with a hostile, heavily armed Hamas within miles of now your major population centers?
Well, here's the context for this discussion. We're looking at a century-old onslaught, Arab onslaught, on Jewish national sovereignty in the land of Israel. This is really the context here. So Hamas represents this view, and unfortunately it leaves us no other choice but to defend ourselves. What do I mean? The stated goal of the Protective Edge, which is the name of this operation, is to restore quiet and peace and calm and stability in our southern region. We have to understand, we have approximately 50% of our population, of 8.2 million people, at risk right now. As you correctly pointed out, Hamas was able to amass 12,000 rockets, some of them put Haifa within range. So this is a very serious threat to Israel.
Where did those rockets come from? Who gave Hamas those rockets?
Most of them were smuggled into Gaza through the Sinai Peninsula, and we also witnessed some attempts to smuggle them in through the sea, by sea.
So but what countries are giving Hamas rockets to kill Israelis?
Well, we know that some of the weapons come from Syria, some of the weapons come from Iran. They collect their weapons from all possible and relevant sources, and we are determined to deprive them of the ability to disrupt our lives so dramatically. And the way to do it is by attacking repeatedly and systematically and consistently their armament depots.
So, Mr. Ambassador, Katty Kay in Washington has a question.
Yeah, Mr. Ambassador, I just wanted to ask you what you thought destroying Hamas would actually entail. Obviously, the airstrikes against Gaza do include civilians in the casualties. We are getting reports this morning that 7 Palestinian children are among those who have been killed overnight. There is peril, of course, for Israel in trying to launch any kind of ground operation against Gaza. It's a dangerous process. You have tried to reduce the number of civilian casualties, but frankly, if you're going to really try to destroy Hamas, you are going to have a lot of civilian casualties. A lot of children are going to die in Gaza because, as you've said before, Hamas places its fighters in schools in amongst the civilian population. So how do you actually go about that? If that's the option you're trying to achieve, how would you even possibly do that?
Well, we're fully aware of this, and obviously we are not set out to destroy the entire Palestinian community in the Gaza Strip of 1.8 million people. There's a beautiful story in the New York Times this morning about the efforts we're making to alert families and civilians in the Gaza Strip before we strike.
Right, but even with those efforts, we're still looking at children being killed this morning.
Unfortunately, what other choice do we have? When Hamas is putting millions of Israelis at risk, when Hamas is paralyzing our entire economy, inflicting major economic harm on Israel, not to mention the psychological trauma to our children, what other choice do we have? What other country would have accepted that situation? So Hamas really, their decision to escalate leaves us no other choice but to respond, and we try to do it in the most surgical fashion possible.
All right, Ambassador Ido Aharoni, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Talking much more about this. Joe?
Hey, Richard Haas, let's talk about the situation.